Uncle Ron and stuff. And today we're going to talk about a convection fan replacement in an electric oven. Convection fan. You may not even know you have one, but a lot of current ovens have added a fan in the oven compartment that comes on and circulates the air in the oven um, to help even out the heat in the oven. So everything is top, bottom, and around. Everything gets the same sort of heat. Heat rises, and usually the elements are in the bottom of the oven, the electrical elements or the gas ovens, or whatever they tend to be. Um, Heat rises to the top, and sometimes it doesn't heat whatever you're trying to cook properly. Okay, so you may not know you have a convection fan in the oven. Now, I moved into this house 5 years ago, and part of what was in the kitchen was this. There it is. This is a Jennair gas stove top with electric oven, known as a dual fuel version. Okay, and this is kind of hard to see, but at the bottom of this, you'll see a small metal plate at the very bottom, down here, right in there. Okay, that tilts forward toward you, and this is the plate, and looking this way, you can see over here there is a manufacturer's metal plate right where the arrow is that gives you the model number and the make. And in fact, even though this is branded as a Jennair, um, it is in fact made by Maytag, or Maytag bought them out, or however you want. But there is a model number there, and you should be able to. First thing you need to do is look at that. Okay, on this oven, the control panel has a convection area up here. Let's see, under there. You can set it to bake or roast, and uh, maybe you've never used it, but the point being is this one has a convection fan in it. And I'll show you, if you open up the door on the oven, located at the very back, you can see this round circular piece right there, and right in the center of it you can see some fan blades. That is in fact the convection fan on this particular unit. I'll talk about it in a minute, but there can be many variations of what this fan looks like, or the assembly of it. Okay, so we inherited this unit, and we don't do a lot of cooking, but we had an occasion recently where the children are in, and we have a whole lot, and my wife and daughters decided they were going to cook like 6 different things in the oven at the same time. And they tried, and it didn't turn out very well. Uh, there was a question, the oven's not right. The oven's not working right. And now I've since have done some research, and I understand I'm not a foodie, so I don't know about cooking. But apparently when you do multiple items in the oven at the same time, there's 3 racks in this particular oven, and when you have all 3 racks full, apparently, to ensure that everything cooks properly, you have to shuttle and shuffle top to bottom, left to right, whatever you have to do. That is a normal procedure using an oven. I did not know that. So that was probably part of the problem. But after the critique that the oven hadn't done very well on cooking such a mass number of items, my wife recently decided to cook a pie or something in there. And I think she did push the convection setting here, over here, and the pie still turned out to be overdone on the bottom and not quite cooked properly at the top or thoroughly. So I decided I would try to take a look at it and see what's going on. Again, I don't know anything about convection. I didn't know anything about cooking. But what I did was I turned on the setting for convection, and basically it's a push button over here. I set it on that and had the oven door closed, and I set the preset so it was set to some temperature, and the element in the bottom of the oven began to heat up, and I saw right here, this guy right here is a symbol for the fan, convection fan is turning. It shows that on the control panel. And I don't have a video of it, but this particular symbol right there goes around and around to display that the fan is running. Okay, so I look through the oven door into the back, where I know that this portion is there, and this fan right there is not moving at all. And I watched it, and it tried to wiggle or tried to move a little bit, but I couldn't figure out what was going on. Again, not knowing how the oven was supposed to operate, I didn't know if this thing came on during preheat or not, and it wasn't moving. So I'll let the oven go ahead and heat to the set temperature. I think it was 350 degrees or something. And then I did notice that this fan would run a little bit, but wasn't right. So it indicated I have a fan problem, a convection problem, fan convection problem. Okay, so again, looking at the model number that was at the base of the unit, right down there in the corner. I got it upside down probably. Yeah. This is the corner over here of the base. I was able to extract my model number. It's that JDS number up here. I got that model number. I also had, left over from when we moved in, I had a installation manual for the dual fuel 30-inch wide Jennair downdraft range, which downdraft has its own, like vent system, and it pulls the air off of the burners at the top, the smoke, whatever you're cooking, and pulls it down and sends it out a big vent tube that goes to the outside. I also had the user manual for this particular device, but it did not tell me what in the world was normal operation for the convection fan on this particular model. So I did some research, and I actually also had, oh, we got oven control circuit, and then we have back here, looks like oven. There's two sides to this. It's interesting. Anyway, this particular side, this is a schematic diagram for the wiring of the oven that I have. And I did have that. And looking at it, I was quickly able to find the, right here where my finger is, it says convection fan. And you will notice it says high and low. There's three connections to it, which means it is a two-speed fan. Okay, so I now know that. So what I surmised was that during the convection cooking phase, it the slow speed fan was to come on during preheat, and that's the reason the control panel was showing the fan going over here. And during the preheat phase, it was turning slowly at the slow speed. And then once it reached the preset temperature of 325 degrees, the fan was kicked on to high-speed fan to circulate the air much more forcefully or higher. Okay, so I had a case where it was clear that the low speed on the fan was not running at all, and on high speed it appeared to come on, but anyway. So I have a convection fan problem. Now, looking at the circuit diagram again, I was able to ascertain, and it makes sense. You saw where the convection fan was up here. Well, there's also over, let's see, there's the control panel right here, and there's also a control panel right there, and there's also what's known as a relay board right here. And because looking at the motor, it's probably a 120 volt AC motor. This particular oven is 240 volt AC. That would be standard sort of voltage for an electrically driven oven. Okay, but the fan is probably not 24 volts AC, which is usually a control voltage in various appliances. 24 volts AC, it's used in your home HVAC system, and it's used in a lot of different applications, refrigerators and so on. 24 volts is the control system. But the fans aren't 24 volts, this is regular old 124 volt two-speed fan is a convection fan. Okay, so, but I do have a relay board. So the control board, when you push these various buttons up here, and you push convection, it's going to tell that relay board, send a small voltage to the relay board, to close a relay, which will send 120 volts to the slow speed winding of the convection motor. Okay, so the fact that the slow speed convection motor wasn't turning could be either a bad motor or I had a relay problem on inside the unit. The relay board may be bad, so I didn't know which was which. But I just started doing some research, and again, I have the model number of my particular oven, okay, and I go, okay, well, let me see what the convection fan looks like if you buy a new one. I knew what it looked like in general by looking through the glass at the back, And again, when I had started up the convection portion of the oven, looking through the front door, I could see the fan was not turning like it should. And again, when it reached temperature, it looked like the fan was kicking on, but I wasn't 100% sure. Okay, so using this model number, I did a search on the internet, easy enough to do, and this is what I came up with right here. And this is Jennair range convection fan, and this is the assembly right there. That is the replacement for what I have on this oven. You can see it fit the part number that I had off of my oven. Okay, and these are the pictures of what it looked like. There's one picture. There's the front picture of it. And you'll notice on this particular one that it has a lip here on the round edge. And also, you'll notice the type of connector it had on it. That's what it looked like. This is the identical part that I have in my Jennair range, and this is the actual picture of the motor assembly. This is the back side of it. And what you'll want to notice here is it has 3 wires coming off of it, and that would be the white is a common, and the red is either low speed or high speed, and the black is the other. This is what I have in my particular electric range oven for the convection fan. Okay, and it's rather hard to see on the two-dimensional picture, but it sort of looks like, and this is, get it here, this is how it is installed. This is what you see looking in the back of the oven port, and you'll see how it actually, there is a slot cut in the back of the oven. This portion right here, this box, if you will, fits into this rectangular portion in the back. And actually, it's interesting, there is in fact a little fan right in here that helps cool the motor. In this portion, there was insulation. Again, this is bolted to the back of the oven. Bolted to the back of the oven. Here is the fan that's actually supposed to be turning to circulate the air. This piece here is bolted to the front of the inside of the oven. And then I've clipped them, but the connector, the wires come off of this, go to a connector, that there is a connector inside the hole in the back of the oven that this motor attaches to. So I have easy peasy, right? I found a replacement motor. If I need one, I can get one, right? No. It says somewhere here, right over there, no longer available. No longer available. This is the complete assembly, as you'll see. It is everything. The whole metal piece here, up here. I'm looking at, yeah, the whole metal piece, the motor. It's everything other than a small cover that goes over it. So, fine and dandy, except I can't order it because it's not available. This is actually what I have. Okay, well, in doing research on convection fans, for ovens, I came across that there are a big variety of different convection fans used in various models. Maytag, Jennair, I don't care who it is. If they have a convection oven, I don't know why I got off skewed here, but I am. Something moved about this. Still not right. They have different types, and here is an example of what I found looking. This particular one appears to be similar to what I have, except you'll see these two prongs sticking out here in the front. The connector on the back is close to being correct. This one has, this one's actually weird. It only has one wire. This is an eBay used item, and it isn't. This isn't going to ever work. It's only got one wire. Got one wire coming out and going in a connector. This is bad. Don't buy this one. I don't know what this guy was thinking. Obviously, he didn't know anything about fans. But anyway, this looks differently, and the front of it is in fact different. Even though it's round, it looks like it would fit my hole in the back, and maybe it would. But there is a supplemental heating element up here on this particular version. So convection fans, and that's part of why I'm trying to do just part one of this, is you got a problem with a convection fan. There's a variety of different convection fans in different models. They may have changed even in the same year for the same model, but you okay. Once you determine you have a convection fan problem, and that you use the convection oven, you turn it, set it to convection, you should see through the glass of the oven, you should see that fan turning back there. It should be enough visible of the fan to see that it's turning. And from my experimentation, the fan should come on low speed. That's another variation of theme. I have found these similar looking fans to have only one speed. Anyway, the fan should come on at some time. If you watch it, it may not come on right away. It may come on when it only reaches temperature. That the user manual gives you no information about when and how the convection fan comes on. Okay, so this is just what I think I've learned. This is one variation of convection fan. There are others, and you could have one of those situations. Here is a, here, where did I do with it? Here is a interesting version, and what you see here, this is, I think, for a Jennair range or a Maytag. You see the center of it here looks very similar to what I have, except we have the supplemental heating element on the back. So again, this interior area here where the motor is mounted and the fan all looks similar, but there's an additional heating element, and you see this mounting bracket stuff is different. This isn't gonna, this would have, the mounting bracket would have to be mounted to the back, and then there's some sort of cover that goes over this whole assembly in the back of your oven. So there are lots of variations of the theme. You will notice on this one that it looks like it has a two-speed fan based on the connector. And connectors can vary all over the place. Uh, they change those from year to year, model to model, whatever. That's completely, who knows. I never worry about that. I can always cut off the old one and attach it to the new one if I have to. Okay, so what I've been trying to tell you is that if you have a convection fan issue and you have a convection fan oven, maybe you don't care. Maybe you don't use it. Maybe you don't care that it's not turning or working. But when it is working, and I did finally get it to work, which I'll explain in part two, uh, uh, it did in fact improve the overall baking of a pie, for example. And there are additional details having to do with the fan. When I said, well, the one I have is a two-speed fan, I'm aware of that. And in fact, this is the old fan motor. And there was a part number on this as well as a motor number. And I'll talk about it in part two. Those didn't help me at all, but it was clear this was a two-speed motor. And upon research, I've determined that the slow speed was about 1,200 revolutions per minute and high speeds around 3,000 revolutions per minute. Now, uh, depending on what you have to do, if you really are going to try to fix your convection fan, and you run into similar problems that I had, as it's no longer available, well then you might have to come and use a convection fan that has slightly different speed, but you might just adjust your cooking to do that. So, all back to this. Based upon my model number of my oven, which I got off of the plate at the bottom of the oven, I was able to find the exact part number, motor right there, that's the part number for my particular oven, but no longer available. And I checked multiple suppliers, no longer available, not manufactured. Um, lots and lots of different things were available, but they don't look like this. They didn't, not this configuration at all. Everything from looking like this one, so lots of other variations. I've even seen one where there's two fans up in here. So that's really the end of part one. Hopefully I've given you an idea of what what a point of this one is. If you have a convection fan and it is not working properly, and you've ascertained that by looking at it using the convection button, and you see no rotation of the fan, or it's not, again, I don't know, it depends on the unit you have. It may be only a single speed fan. It comes on as soon as you can push convection, stays on the whole time. Or it may be a two-speed fan speed like I had, where it would come on during preheat at a slower speed, and then once it reached temperature, the relay board would click on and it would power up the high-speed set of coils. Both sets, the low and the high speed, are not energized at the same time. Only one or the other. Okay. If you have a convection fan issue, then I've tried to give you enough to where to start to research the problem. It could be the fan in the back. It could be the relay board. Someplace there's a relay, which the control board and the temperature sensor are probably telling the fan, close this relay. Board says close this relay and power up the slow speed winding or the high speed winding of the convection fan. Okay. The configuration of your convection fan could be anything. Using the model number, you can do a search on the internet, and don't forget eBay, because you might wind up, and I'll explain in part two about used and what you have to do maybe to get a repair done using a used unit. Anyway, the whole deal has to do with oven and convection fan. If you don't care about it, okay. As I said, I did get it repaired. Used it once for an apple pie cooking under a convection setting. And I think in my case, there is an adjustment you do when you're using convection. And the recipe instructions may say reduce the amount of time by 5 minutes. when you're convection cooking because the heat is more evenly distributed. You don't need to cook it as long. Well, that's all based on the speed of the fan and the overall condition of your heating elements and so on. And as I said, this guy didn't tell me anything about the speeds of the fan or how the convection fan operated internally at all. No help. When we cooked the apple pie, I think in the end it got a little too done, and I think maybe the issue there was that the fan I wound up using to get it operational again may had a little faster fan um, than was built in what is commonly used to do the time adjustment for cooking. So in our case, we could reduce whatever it says. If you're going to do convection, bake it for 20 minutes. We might need to reduce it down to 15 or 17 minutes. A slight reduction because the fan is running at higher speed. I don't know that for sure, but I'm giving you a highlight of what may occur. Anyway, this is Uncle Ron and stuff. This had to do with oven convection fan. And although I've talked about my particular model, I was trying to give you an indication of what you may face no matter what your model is, and how to go about finding a replacement part for it. You always have to have the model number, and then there are lots of various part suppliers on the internet that sell appliance parts of all kinds. And most of the time they are available. In this particular case, it was not. This is a 20-year-old oven, and even 20 years shouldn't be that long to find replacement parts. I think manufacturers ought to be required to supply parts for 30 years or something. And especially, I always have a gripe, and I'll show this in here, when especially these days where they've started building microprocessors and computers under the board system to give them more functions and features and so on. Sometimes the programming is not right. There's glitches in the programming. Well, they sell the product, the glitches come up. They call in a repairman. Repairman says, well, it's going to be a whole new control board for $600. My contention is that if it's a control board issue, the manufacturer ought to replace it because it's probably a software problem or a piece of hardware that he put in there. It's the design problem, not a manufacturing or a user problem. They should be forced to replace that board at their cost, not yours. Speaking of which, on this convection oven thing, on this oven right here, if you were to call in a repairman and say, my convection oven is not working, he would have no better luck than I did on finding a replacement part. He would say, well, you have to replace the whole unit. If you really want convection, you're going to have to replace the whole unit. There's no part available to fix that back there. That would be his answer. Either you don't have convection and you don't use it, or you replace the whole assembly, the cooktop and the oven. That's what happens a lot with a lot of different things. If you call a repairman and do an HVAC thing, I know there are some unscrupulous people about, and in the HVAC, the big compressor outside, what fails most often is what's called a run capacitor. They're like 20, 50, $100. If you pay your repairman, it'll be 150. But some unscrupulous people have said you need to replace the whole unit just because the run capacitor's gone bad. Or there's a big fan out there that cools, sucks air up through the coils on the compressor unit. And if it goes bad, they'll say you need to buy a whole new unit. Now, there is a fan usually you can buy to put in there. It may be $200, $300, $400. Some repairmen will say you just need a new fan at the top. $300, $400. They go, oh great. Well, Some will just say you need a whole unit at $5,000, not just the fan at the top. Or they'll argue, well, it's really so old, you know, I ought to think about replacing this whole unit. The lifespan of that kind of stuff is 25, 30 years. It should be at least that long if it's maintained properly. But anyway, that's a side issue. Uncle Ron and stuff, I've talked too long. This is about Convection fan, and in part two, I'll get in to show you exactly what I had to do to get it operational again. And it is a more advanced sort of problem if you're not used to doing mechanical extractions. You obviously have to turn the power off to the oven, make sure it's dead before you do any kind of electrical work if you're unfamiliar with that, or taking assemblies apart, putting them back together if you're unfamiliar with that. Then I suggest you're done, and you should think about you don't have convection, and you're not going to unless you want to replace the whole unit. But anyway, in part two, I will show you in more details what was involved. This is the old unit that came out. What I did to test it, because I told you it could be the fan or it could be a relay board in your control panel. And I had to test this to determine what was the problem. Anyway, Uncle Ron and stuff, that's enough for today. Today is the 30th of January, 2024. I hope this helps. It's too long.